the onset of the Ice Age, the Earth's animal and plant kingdom were wiped out, and the planet's landscape changed forever. Fossilized remains of dinosaurs and prehistoric trees were thought to be the only records left to us. Closer examination of these fossils found that one tree species that predates the Jurassic period was the sole survivor of the Ice Age and was now growing widely across several continents. By Darwin's own criteria, here was a true living fossil, the Ginkgo biloba. Following the Ice Age, the tree survived exclusively in the Jiangsu and Anhui regions of China. During the Sung dynasty, it was introduced into Japan and became a favorite planting in temple gardens. Its reintroduction into Europe, and finally its arrival at Kew Gardens, following an absence from Britain of over 100 million years, was a hurried affair, as the botanical gardens of Europe competed to bring these rare oriental trees home. The sapling of the great tree at Kew started its life on the Duke of Argyll's estate at Whitton in Middlesex. Following his death in 1761, the ginkgo and other rare specimens were loaded onto a barge and transferred down the Thames to Kew, where Lord Bute was establishing an ornamental and botanical garden for the Princess of Wales. The Duke's prized collection was welcomed into Kew with open arms.
There was a great deal of excitement around the gardens when the ginkgo arrived, because everyone realised just how valuable an acquisition it was. It had already been introduced into England a few years before, and here was our first opportunity to plant one for ourselves.
This new planting was to start a trend at Kew Garden for chinoiserie. New species from the Orient were being introduced all the time, and the gardens commissioned oriental structures, bridges, and of course the now famous pagoda to enhance the theme.
The ginkgo originally was planted against the side of the great stove house. This was the great glass house of Kew at that time. The site was chosen because we were unsure whether the plant would be hardy in the British climate. So therefore it was planted where it would get the warmth from the house. Well, it's obviously a very adaptable tree, both in terms of the amount of time it survives, but also in terms of its local adaptation. It will survive temperatures, it will survive drought, and indeed even modern pollution. After some time, we could see that the plant would be hardy, and indeed it developed into the magnificent tree that it is today.
In reality, the ginkgo's ability to withstand both 20th century pollution and the climate need never have been in question. The tree is from such indestructible stock that one specimen located just 800 meters from the epicenter of the Hiroshima explosion rejuvenated itself and lives on today as a memorial to all that perished around it.
People are always very interested to find out that the ginkgo is sexed like a human, so we have male and female trees, and our particular tree is a male. In 1911, part of the female tree was grafted onto our male tree as an experiment to see whether we could produce seed for a further generation of trees.
With no female trees in the area, grafting was the only option. But despite some fruit ripening on the female branches, the tree never successfully reproduced.
After some years, on some pruning of the ginkgo, the graft union was actually pruned off as a mistake.
Disheartened by this episode, Kew never attempted the union again. In 1938, Sir Albert Seward described the Kew tree as being a heritage from worlds too remote for our human intelligence to grasp. A tree which has in its keeping the secrets of the immeasurable past. These were prophetic words, as today Western doctors are discovering the ginkgo seems to hold the remedies for 20th century illnesses as varied as Alzheimer's disease and tinnitus. Unsurprisingly, Chinese pharmacists have been using the tree for some time.
Mainly we use the seeds of Ginkgo biloba for about 1,000 years. For the leaf used for medicinal purposes, it's about 500 years. And the seeds are mostly used for treating cough and asthma related to lung problems. But the leaves, apart from the use for lung system, it is also used for cardiovascular system. Ginkgo tree has some spiritual implications in China. I understand it's a sign of longevity or goodwill. That's why you will find a lot of ginkgo trees planted in most of the Buddhist temples. The female ginkgo tree has a very pungent odor, which is not quite pleasant to some people. That's why people in the Western world don't like to plant female ginkgo tree.
So unpleasant is the smell of the female ginkgo that many American cities have passed bylaws forbidding its planting in public areas. In the autumn light, the ginkgo looks striking, and it becomes understandable why it has earned Chinese nicknames such as the duck's foot tree, and perhaps more aptly, the tree of 40 golden crowns. Its vivid autumn colour makes it stand out from all around, making it something of a star attraction in the garden.
The public are very pleased to see the ginkgo and obviously realise that it's one of the original plantings, but are not really aware of its significance to Kew as a whole. It's most probably the most valuable tree at Kew.
Over here and over the top tomorrow at the same time on BBC Two, the American tree which has risen to be Britain's tallest.